So where are most of the people based where are most of the women that would be joining this based? Europe or all over?
I think it will be quite global as well. So like how we did outreach and also how Women in Geospatial is set up, it's global. So we have a lot from the US, obviously also a lot in Europe, but also some in Australia and more eastwards. So I think it will be hard to make a real focus on, okay, this is more European based. But we have to see. I don't know if there's the statistics in the end. We have to see probably in the end from where people joined.
I don't think it's anything we capture, but what we could ask everyone who's already joined us while you are all waiting, if you're finding the question section on the control panel, Havana K has already managed to do so, and she's telling us, or he, I apologize, that they're tuning in from the Netherlands, but originally from India. So that's great. So yeah, if you want to use the question section to tell us where you are tuning in from, then please do so. That would be really interesting. We have someone coming in from Arizona. That's great. So I'm going to keep a tap on that. Tuning in from Germany, London, Virginia, Texas, Birmingham. Whoa, this is exciting. Chicago, UK, London, Derbyshire in the UK, Idaho, Alabama, UK, Edinburgh, Indonesia, wow, Canada, Boston, London. Oh my gosh, hello and welcome everyone from the world. This is exciting. Nigeria, South Africa.
Wow.
Again, London. Sorry, I'm just reading these all out because they're popping in so quickly, but it's exciting to see. Greater Manchester in the UK. So yeah, keep them coming. Keep telling us where you're coming in from. This is exciting.
Glad we have some northern representation in the audience. I'm a northern lass also.
Yes, Glasgow. There we go.
You? I'm from near Durham.
Oh really? I grew up in Sheffield.
Yeah.
See, I studied in Aberdeen.
Oh,
Could probably not get further north in the UK.
no.
In terms of big city, anyway. Pennsylvania. Rotterdam. Oh no, Rotherham. Sorry.
Rotherham.
Sheffield. Yes.
I'm Rotherham,
And
Sheffield.
Woohoo! This is Helen from Sheffield.
Welcome, Helen.
Exciting. Welcome everyone from around the globe, especially in times like this. This is very, very exciting to connect that way.
Oh yes.
Since it's now possible, well, it has been possible for a while, but I guess no one ever really, or it wasn't so popular then, was it, to start with? So yeah, let us know in the question section if you've just recently joined us, where you're tuning in from, and then we'll start our session shortly.
I suggest we wait maybe another minute and then we start.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Alexandra is also from Sheffield. Helen, Alexandra, you should connect. You're coming from the same city. Amsterdam, Bristol, Denver.
Yay, Colorado. I used to live in Colorado.
I also see on Slido the responses come in from South Africa, Tennessee. Okay.
Ooh, we have someone from Zurich as well.
I suggest we start. And also a warm welcome from my side. My name is Julia Wagemann, and I'm a co-founder of the Women in Geospatial Plus network. And I'm very excited to make this webinar today happen, and also that you all here. We had this idea of setting up a speakers database due to reasons that a lot of conferences and events we go in the geospatial industry and academia are often not too diverse, and so we have had the aim with the speakers database at least to to showcase women in the field, to make conference organizers it a bit better to also find women plus and underrepresented genders for their conferences and events. And so we had the idea also to combine it with a webinar series. And this is today the first webinar. So this is the kickoff of the Women in Geospatial webinar series on career development and also strengthening the your public profile. And I'm very excited to have the webinar with the topic today, where are the women speakers? And so what we do today is to have, one moment, we launched the Women in Geospatial Speakers database. So it is open already for around 2 months to register. So some of you probably already registered and you set up your profile. But today we will show you what is actually the Speakers database platform. So today from today on, it is also open for conference organizers and for anyone in the internet to go to the Speakers database, browse the people who registered, and also to see their profile and also to contact you for their conferences and events. And then the second part will be a panel discussion where we discuss actually where are the women speakers, and also where we discuss how we can actually make conferences and events more diverse. And I'm very excited about our panelists today. And so we have 4 panelists. We have Dr. Rachel Murray from Queensland University of Technology. We have Liz McCullough from, who is, I think, co-founded 500 Women Scientists and also works at the Oklahoma State University. We have Marie Hemingway, who is a consultant at Jacobs and is also steering committee member of the Women's Infrastructure Network. And we have Todd Barr, who works at AIR Worldwide. I hope I spelled it correctly. And he's also the co-organizer of the Mappiest Hour podcast. And so before we dive into the panel discussion, we will start with launching the speakers database. But before we do it, I kindly ask you, I already see some of you hopped onto Slido. So I ask you to go to Slido, and with the hashtag WIC2020, you can pose any questions. So if you have any questions already now for the panelists, and also more importantly during the panel discussion, so please go to Slido and ask your question there, and we will then integrate the questions into the panel discussion. So this is really not a question and answer webinar from us to the panelists. It's really you are part of the webinar, and so this is now your chance also to engage in the discussion, and we're really looking forward to it. Just a small note before we really start, and this webinar is recorded, so in case you have to leave early or you have friends who couldn't make it, we will share the recording link, and so you can also listen to the webinar later at a later date. So now I would start just to give, for those who don't know who Women in Geospatial is. So we are a professional network which was launched around a year ago. It was in March 2019, where we wanted to set up a professional network for women in the geospatial industry. And our idea is that we want to change the status quo and also make the geospatial field more diverse by creating a strong network of women geospatial leaders and change makers. And so we launched 1 year ago, or 1.5 years ago, and we have now already over 1,300 members registered. We are active on social media, on Twitter and LinkedIn, and we share job advertisements, and also we share achievements from members. So we do advocacy. We have a mentorship program which run now since September the first time. It will now, the first cohort will stop in June, and the second year, or the second cohort will start in September, and the applications will open soon. So we also have a career mentorship program. We have a community building, so we run a mailing list and a Slack channel where we exchange anything from jobs to challenges to successes. We have on the Slack, we also have different regional groups depending on where you come from. So from North America or Africa or Europe. So you can also exchange more local events and information. And then we, of course, also run events. So last year, we also had in-person events due to COVID-19. Everyone is aware. We now also moved to run events remotely. So this is today actually our first Women in Geospatial event, which is remote, and but it will be, as I already said, it is the first of a series. So until the end of the year, we plan to have a webinar series on career development, and we will, on our social media channels and also on our website, we will give updates on all the upcoming webinars. If you want to have more information, it's free to join. It's really global. So, or as you already saw in the chat of the GoTo, that from all over the world, people join us today, and this is also the case for Women in Geospatial. So there is from everywhere members registered. So if you want to have more information, go to our website, womeningeospatial.org. And this brings me now to our latest project we had, and this is also what we launched today. So manels, this is a common picture. So manel is a word for men-only panels. So panel sessions or also conferences where the majority of speakers are men, and often also white men. This picture is just an example, so I don't want to put and stress anything on it. This happens also in many other conferences, that we see a panel discussion, especially for an opening ceremony or keynote speakers, that it's only men and often white men. So and yeah, and the question is, okay, how can we actually make it more diverse, that women feel more welcomed, but at the same time also that in the industry and academia itself, that women and underrepresented genders are seen more as expertise, and so they also seen as experts and are invited to speak about their work and their projects. And a common excuse, if you ask us, or conference organizers, is, okay, what happened? Why didn't you see that there's like maybe a diversity issue? Is that, oh yes, we tried, but we could not find relevant women speakers. And so this is one attempt with the speakers database, that at least there's no excuse anymore that no women experts could be found. And with this, I would now bring the floor to Ida Monfort Muriak. She's a database engineer, and just with her help, we actually could set up the past 4 or 5 months, I would say, the database. Just before we go to Ida, and just before she shows you the speakers database, the speakers database is on 2 levels. So first of all, it is for you. So if you work in the geospatial sector or anything with geospatial related, and you are a woman or someone with or coming from an underrepresented gender background, this is for you. So please take the opportunity, register, fill in your profile, because this is a way that how people how you can be seen, and people can actually see what you do, and also can contact you. So this is an opportunity for you to grow yourself and also to grow your career. So please put yourself forward and register in the database. And then for organizations and conference organizers, this is also a platform now where you can find women experts and women speakers in the geospatial field. And at the same time, if you make use of the database, you gain a reputation and your event gains a reputation for making an effort to make it fair and equal and more diverse. And at the same time, it is also becoming more attractive for people with from underrepresented backgrounds to also attend the event and the conference. So I invite everyone to go to speakers.womeningeospatial.org, and now I would hand over to Ida, who actually made the speakers database possible. Ida, over to you.
Hello, everyone. This is Ida. I think I need to be made presenter. So meanwhile, I will explain my background a little bit. I studied computer science in Spain, and then I did a master in geospatial technologies. And in January, I joined the Slack of Women in Geospatial, and then I realized that they needed to make a speakers database, and I offered myself to build it, and till now we are really happy. How is it going? So now we have 121 speakers registered worldwide. Here you can see the map. And now I will show you how you can log in and you can register as a speaker. So you click in login, and you have here several ways of logging in the database. So for example, I can choose Facebook login. And once I give permission to Facebook, I go directly to the registration form, and it takes my email address, my name, and I can start writing my profile, position, in what sector do I work, how many years of experience do I have, my biography, webpage. Also, if we want to be appearing in the map, we have to fill this, the country and the city. I'm currently residing in Spain, in Castellón, so I fill in that one, and I can click here in which areas I feel I'm an expert, which I can speak about. So for example, geospatial software, geographic information systems, then which domains do I work in? For example, citizen science, smart cities. And this you can always log in again and modify everything you need. So if you have like an old profile, you can log in again and change it. Then, for example, I can also write which languages I feel confident presenting. For example, Catalan, Spanish. Then by which means I would like to be contacted. You can click, for example, LinkedIn and paste there your LinkedIn address. And then if you want also, you can upload your profile picture. And then to save your data, you have just to accept the data privacy statement and declare to be a woman or a minority gender. Then you can save your data. And now we can go to the main web page. And here you can filter by all the things that you entered in the profile. For example, I can search my name, and now it doesn't appear in the map because I didn't have the city and the country before. But if I refresh the page, And now we search here for me. Let's see. Yes, there I am. So this is the profile that I just entered with the LinkedIn address. And here you can go and see, for example, you can click complete profile, and there you see the profile that I just entered with the information that I added in my registry form. And here we have the map and the list. You have here a button to clear your search. So for example, we can search for, imagine that we need a panelist that is working in private companies. So we can click here, private company, and then we got the results. And for example, we need 10 to 20 years of experience. So here we are getting closer to our speaker. I can filter by all the information that I entered in the form, and also I can see it in the map, and I can see it in the list. So here I have the women that are matching this criteria that I just entered. So here we see the women, and if, for example, we need to see the profile, I can, for example, I guess I will search. Let's see. I can click in any profile here, complete profile, and here we have the information. And these women, for example, she will be willing to be contacted by Twitter, by email, or and she's sharing her webpage. So if you click in here, you directly go to their web pages, to the Twitter, to the social media. So I guess that's how it works. The web page, the database. If you need more information, we have a section here with how does it work. And in case you find any profile that is abusive, or you find any technical difficulty, we have here a contact email that you can reach us, and we will try to solve it. So I guess that is everything. So you can, if you didn't register yet, you can register today, and you can check your profile, how it looks like in the web page.
Thank you, Ida. It's great. We also already have a comment on Slido. Amazing job. So
thank you.
Okay, I just okay, now I've been again presenter. Thank you. And I just okay, and with this we jump directly to the panel discussion again, and I would like to invite first of all like to our panelists, Rachel, Todd, Marie, and Liz, because I think you can do it much better than I would do it. Just shortly introduce yourself, and if you could also just tell us, yes, where are the women speakers? So maybe Liz, would you like to start?
Sure. So I'm Liz McCullough. I actually didn't co-found 500 Women Scientists. I wish I did, but I co-created the Request a Woman in STEM database. So another database for finding expertise across the world of women plus folks. And I talked briefly with the wonderful organizers here about creating their own database, and you've done an amazing job. So congratulations, it looks fantastic. But to your question, I think people have to realize that women in general often are overburdened in their own work. And so you may have to ask twice as many women to get equal representation, and that's okay. You just have to do the legwork. And you have to recognize that often women are overtaxed with all the other requests that they're getting in terms of their time and other things that they have to do on the side, such as being a parent or just other obligations that they're asked for as a part of their job, because women are often asked in general to take on more administrative tasks anyway. So by asking a woman speaker, which is awesome, you definitely should do it, recognize that they may say no, and that's okay, and you just have to ask more.
Okay, great. So thanks, Liz. So maybe Marie, do you would like to continue?
Sure, just to check that I'm not on mute.
All
We
good.
can hear you.
Excellent. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marie Hemingway. I'm an associate director working for Jacobs Strategic Consulting here in the UK. I'm also a board member for the Women's Infrastructure Network with an interest in diversity and inclusion in my professional and personal life. And to answer the question of where are the women speakers, I think women make up 51% of the population. We've got women speakers everywhere, and we just need to ask them to speak up. So I don't think this should be a big problem. I just think it's something that we need to do more of. We need to really promote.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Thanks, Marie. Rachel, do you want to continue?
Yep. My name is Rachel Murray, and I'm over in Australia at the Queensland University of Technology in sunny old Brisbane. So I have an aversion to manels and all-male conferences. So I spend a bit of time trying to find ways to alter that. So things like getting the university to stop sponsoring meetings that don't have gender equity policies and things like that. I got the government, the local government to do it, the Queensland government to do it, and also done a few global things, which I might talk about a bit later. In terms of the women, they're there. They're in our workplaces. They're all over. They're achieving a lot. A lot of them are fairly quiet. Even in fields where you've got a very low percentage, collectively, those numbers are huge. As you're probably all about to find out as you start making your databases and stuff, those numbers, they're there. Just people need to look a bit harder to find them. And once they found them, as Liz already mentioned, invite them to a conference first. Invite them until you've got all your women numbers in there, and then invite the men afterwards. Make sure there's diversity across them. So I think we basically owe it to our younger generation to improve what we see now, so that when they start coming through, our students as they come through aren't going to end up going to conferences where there's nearly all men there. So
Awesome, great. Thanks, Rachel. And now, Todd, would you like to also present yourself?
Sure. I'm Todd Barr. I'm the Director of Geospatial Products and Solutions at AAR Worldwide. We're a Veris company. I also serve as the co-chair for the Veris Pride Network in Massachusetts and Boston. I also run the database for a general geospatial speakers database, not just directed at women, but for everybody. And lastly, I'm the co-host of the Mappiest Hour. With Silas Toms. It started off as this kind of a larky sort of podcast, but ended up being something where we had people come and tell their stories about how they got into geospatial, because everyone has a weird way they got into GIS. So it's interesting that way we can support the younger community and the younger geospatial professionals as they move forward. As far as where the women are, just kind of sounding back, yeah, they're out there. We've had multiple women guests in the Mappiest Hour, and putting together conferences both internally and externally for different companies. It's just a matter of going out there, finding them, supporting them, and helping them as much as they can, so they can actually, so they can work with everybody to become part of the panels. And kind of dovetailing what Liz says, I'm a single parent, and I'm fortunate and privileged enough that I can drag my daughter with me to conferences, as she would put it, drag her to the conferences. And so people know I'm going to show up to a conference. And a lot of times there's a perception when people invite women to a conference or single parents to a conference that there might be a situation where they're not guaranteed to show up. So it kind of dovetails into the whole, child care conferences to create support for people who are the primary caregivers of their children. But again, the women are out there. We just have to find them and support them.
I think
Todd,
I'm wondering if I could just jump in there, Todd, and let you know, and the people on this call, that the Women's Infrastructure Network here in the UK have started to promote family-friendly policies for our events. So recognising the challenges that people have with last-minute childcare, especially when they're single parents, and also trying to promote policies for breastfeeding mums to have the facilities that they need when they come to our events. And so one thing that we do with our event hosts is really encourage them to allow attendees to bring their children when they have no other alternative, and also provide those facilities for breastfeeding mums.
That's great.
So feel free to come along to one of our events when the pandemic's over, and bring your daughter.
Will do.
So a common slide podcast also think, and I think in line with the also said women are have to bring
You're cutting in and out.
Oh, sorry. Now better?
No, I don't think so.
Not good.
You can't hear anything.
Is it
So we did actually get a set of
Hello, hear me?
questions, I guess. Yes.
Okay. To being common speak voice and
You're still cutting in and out.
Is it worth, while we wait for Julia to come back, to jump into the questions that she prepared for us, and then when she rejoins us, we can pick up the conversation there?
That works.
I think that's a great idea. So the first question was, yep, why do Manels happen? So
start with yourself, Rachel.
Yep. Okay. So I guess one of the reasons is the makeup of the organising committee. If you have a committee that's predominantly male, you tend to get predominantly male speakers. If you can get at least 30%, preferably 50% on your committee, you're probably going to end up with a much more diverse speaker lineup. There's also things like often people will pick somebody that they've seen before. So if nearly all the meetings you've gone to have mainly male speakers at them, and you're trying to think of a good speaker, you'll pick a male speaker. So there's that in there as well. And I guess sometimes there's a bit of a habit or vaguely laziness, because they have to think a little bit harder to find more people, which is why these databases are great out there. There's also, I guess, there's a bit of misogynistic, a level of misogyny in there, where some fields, I'm not entirely sure what yours is like, but some fields, they tend to think that they're picking on merit, and it's often not on merit because they don't view women as being as much of an expert. So I think that's one of the reasons we need to have more women at conferences speaking, because then people then view them as somebody that is an expert. Great.
Start to lose that implicit bias that we have.
Yeah.
Of women being experts.
Yeah.
Yeah, so to pick up on what you said, Rachel, I think for me, or kind of my hypothesis that I have, is there's a combination of everything that you've said, but predominantly unconscious bias and having decision-making committees who are predominantly male that have seen speakers before and want to promote their ideas or whatever they have to say. And I think from my perspective, it feels like these events are being designed around those initial speakers that are chosen, that are more likely to be male given the legacy makeup of events that we've had previously. And so I think what happens is organizers have their kind of anchor main speaker that is a man, and then maybe they know people that they've worked with, again, that are men, that then join the panel. And it gets to the point where someone says, oh, we need to find a woman to support this panel. But because they've designed it around men that work in a specific area or on specific topics, it's quite difficult to then find the woman that complements that. So I think from my perspective, if we switched up that design and said, let's find a woman that is very competent in this field, and then let's find a man to add to the panel afterwards, I think there'd be a similar problem. So for me, I wonder, or my hypothesis is, I wonder if that was to change if we switched it around a little. Still to figure out what the answer is though. So maybe hand over to Todd.
So I agree with you, Maria. A lot of things are because, you know, men network with other men, generally speaking, right? At conferences, we go to bars with other men, we do things. So we have an understanding of how we interact with them, right? And so men feel comfortable having other men on panels because we understand that men tend to understand how other men think and other men operate in their processes, and they're very similar that way. And so it's kind of like we call it a phalanx of thought. And if we introduce a female into one of those panels, suddenly there's an unknown variable introduced into the panel, right? We haven't interacted with her, or them, or whoever, and we don't understand precisely how they think about this topic. So it may not be, there may be a conflict that comes up, or there may be something that comes up that interrupts the panel. I think that is a lot of the worry from the male perspective. Well, not a lot. I think that's part of the implicit bias of why women aren't invited. Mm-hmm. And you know, it is hard to find women to come on panels, but it's not insurmountable, right? If I get multiple women to come yammer with me and Silas for an hour on a podcast, you should be able to get someone to come to a panel.
Can I ask you a quick question, Todd, just before we move over to Liz? Sorry, Liz. So often you end up seeing people think they need to pick the top of a field. So usually that's somebody at a professor level, which is not necessarily that's the top of the field in terms of their career, but it's not necessarily the top in the field in a topic. And so when you're selecting and doing this, what are you selecting for? Are you selecting for the topic, or are you selecting for, you know, the CEOs of a company, which are typically male, or something along those lines?
So for the podcast, I select for insight. Yep. You know, what do they bring to the community? What do they do? That kind of stuff. As far as panels and stuff go, it's usually whoever has the largest social media presence that's the top of the Google results.
But men normally have the largest Twitter, no? Or is that not true?
Oh, it depends. Yeah. There's another number of women with large Twitter followings, but again, it could be a masculine thing. So
I was just gonna, I think sort of what Rachel's talking about as well is, if we just say, okay, I want somebody who has the most prestige, let's say for my keynote or for my panel, most fields that's going to be men, right? We know that a lot of fields, it's sort of an inverted triangle when it comes to gender, in particular in biology, which is my field. There's loads of women at the lowest level with undergraduate degrees in biology, but as you get higher and higher up in administration or full professors, that number, you know, shrinks significantly. And we could talk for hours about why that is. But I think what that leads to is that if you always pick from that top of the triangle, of course it's going to be men. So what you have to start doing is thinking, okay, how can I change the opinion of what an expert looks like? So I think, again, to amplify what Rachel was saying, I think if you choose people based on their passion and their knowledge about a topic, you're going to start moving down that triangle a little bit more. And if you start looking for just people who are you know, at the forefront of that question right now, that may be more likely to be men and women versus just the person who's done it the longest, which of course is men, because we haven't really shifted that triangle yet and made it more equal across the genders. And so I think what you need to do is start recognizing that, you know, there may be a great graduate student or a great postdoc or, you know, somebody else in the field who has done the work, isn't the PI at the top, but who's actually done the work, that may be the expert panelist for a woman for a little while, until we get to the point where it can be more equitable and the people holding the highest degrees and holding the highest positions are also women. But that's going to take time, and we're not there yet. And we need to promote those women and say, you are amazing, you are the expert, you have the knowledge, you have the ability to do this panel. Yes, there may be some dudes across the way from you that are full professors and that you're on the same panel with, but the men in those positions also need to recognize that they need to step back and support the women in those younger roles, to give them the voice and to give them the ability to speak. Or if you're a full professor and you have an awesome postdoc and you're a man, and that postdoc's a woman, say, I don't need to be on this panel. I want my postdoc to represent the work and my field because I think they're amazing. And that type of encouragement is also what's going to get women more in the forefront.
Agree.
So I'd love to.
Yeah, sorry, Marie.
I'd love to just second your point with your point that you made, Liz, around kind of expert panelists. And like from my perspective in the area that I work in consulting, one of the big things that we are looking at and recognizing for the future is the power of innovation for businesses to maintain competitive advantage. And businesses are not innovative from having people that have worked in that industry for 40 years saying the same things that they've been saying for the last 40 years. Innovation comes from diversity of thought, fresh blood, fresh ideas, mixing people from different sectors, and allowing those conversations to evolve to create something that wouldn't naturally have evolved, an idea that wouldn't have evolved within a single field or from a single person. And so I think that there should be, in my opinion, in my personal opinion, a drive to rethink what panels are really there to do. Are they there to just profess knowledge from a 30-year career, or are they there to drive innovation and new ideas and new thinking so that we can progress as a society in the different areas that we want to?
Yes, I agree. So I think now the questions are coming in, and I think it's one question is coming from what you all said in principle, that yes, also women have to be visible, and one way is women have to put themselves out. So one question is, how can we actually encourage women and people from underrepresented genders to find their voice and self-promote?
If I could, I would just say, often I think it's difficult to self-promote. I struggle with it a lot, but what I've worked on is asking others to help me. So instead of it feeling like I'm the one who's out on Twitter being like, I'm amazing, you should follow me, but to straight up ask, say, Miriam, my good friend, you're amazing, could you promote this for me? And then I can chime in and I can amplify. So it feels less like I'm the one out there saying I'm amazing. It's my friend saying I'm amazing. And then I can just say, yeah, you're right. Look at all this cool stuff I've done. As a way, at least a foot in the door to self-promotion. And I think particularly this is a great thing that allies can do. Men who want to help promote women is amplify others. So, you know, use your platforms, use your strong Twitter following, etc., to not just retweet something, which I'm guilty of, but write something about it and say, this is why this is great, you should listen to this, and amplify in that way. And then people who are struggle with self-promotion can then chime in and do some of that work.
Yep, I agree with you there. So we have a thing, we have a bunch of us at work, and whenever someone does something, we go to each other and go, do us a favor, go tell the news people, whatever. And then it goes into our newsletters and things like that, just internally. And then we've just started up another Twitter. One of my 4 Twitters. I've got another Twitter where we just started putting women's work into it and putting what they do in there just to get them out there and visible. And then hopefully people will retweet them and their names get known for being a particular topic. So that's the other way, is find some other people to retweet you or to write about you. If you ever go look at Jess Wade, does anybody look at Jess Wade's tweets? They're fabulous. You know, have a look and see how she promotes people, and maybe try something along those lines. Get someone to help you do that. I think that's probably the way to go.
Okay, thank you, Liz and Rachel. We also have a question from the audience. Could you give examples on how to successfully challenge a panel in a constructive way without alienating yourself?
So I'd be happy to answer this because this is something that I recently have done a number of times. And I've written an article about this on LinkedIn, so please feel free to take a look at that. I've proposed a 3-tiered approach for how we can do this as individuals within our sphere of influence. And I think, so just to outline those, I think from the organizational perspective, if you are involved in an organizing committee that is putting on an event, then make sure that you are pushing policies like no women, no panel, to make sure that you can't slip through the net of an all-male panel. If you are a panelist that's invited to an event such as this one that we're at now, make sure that you're asking the organizers who the other panelists are and that there is diverse representation in that group. Something which I actually forgot to do for this event because I was so excited to be involved. So that's something for me to work on for the future. And then thirdly, as an attendee at an event or a potential attendee at an event, make sure that where you see all male panel events, you politely challenge. And this is something that I did recently for the Institution of Engineering and Technology. There was an event that I wanted to go to with an all male white panel. And I sent a message to say, I'm really disappointed to see that you do not have any diversity in this group. I think the conversation will suffer. I'd really like you to reconsider. And for organizations that care about equality, diversity and inclusion, they'll take that on board. And in this instance, the IET were fantastic and they redefined their event and they had 2 women, 2 men, and they also had a woman of colour, a BAME candidate within that as well. So I think my advice would be speak up and speak out, and there are many ways to do that. Just do it politely.
So I might add to that. So yeah, I agree with everything you've just said. I think there also sometimes when you point out, often the response back, because I point out a lot of them, sometimes the response back is they don't really see that they have an issue. So for some of them, I add up what they've done over a few conferences and provide it back. You realize that in the last however many, you've only had X number of speakers that have been female, person of color, whatever. And that kind of helps because a lot of them think, oh, well, this is just a one-off, it'll be better next year or the year after. We'll sort it out by then. The other one I also ask is whether or not they've got a gender equity or a diversity policy, and suggest they should go and look at getting one so that their speaker levels sort of even out a little bit. Sometimes you've got to be prepared. Sometimes you'll just get ignored. Other times you'll find, as Marie's just said, you do get a really good response. Some people just really don't think about it until you point it out to them. So you have to give them time to process that, you know, we've done, oops, we did that, and to try and fix it.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Marie and Rachel. I think there are great approaches, and this already shows us that it's like it's a multi-target concept. So so we have to individually, but also organizations and conference organizers, we have to work together to make a change. There is two questions, I think, on the Slido, which should be highlighted. So I think there's one question which is directly to the last responses. So this is a great bottom-up approach for diverse panels, but it also puts the pressure on the overburdened. Is there something we can do to engage with the top?
So what I would say with that is we need to get our allies. I've recognized more and more as a woman who's overburdened myself. I'm a mother of 2 small children. I'm now teaching. I'm trying to set up a lab in a pandemic. Don't ask how that's working. That there's a lot that we're already trying to do, and I agree, definitely overburdened. But I think that's where we have to recognize that sometimes we can't do it all because we live in a patriarchy, unfortunately, and until we tear that down, we need help. And so continually pushing our allies in a polite way, but recognizing and saying, hey, you are the top in your field. How about you turn down half the keynote requests you get and amplify women and suggest women who should fill your place? Because do you really need to give 20 keynote talks? No, you could probably give 10 and do just fine in your field. And if you give up your position to 10 other women who you know are amazing, then that's what you should do. And I think also, for example, here in the US, the director of the NIH said that he would no longer sit on any manels, Francis Collins. So, that's a huge step from somebody who's in a huge position of power. So I think our allies recognizing the power that they have and using it for good. And there's ways to do that, like I said, suggesting other speakers besides yourself, amplifying those who work for you, so your postdocs, your graduate students, who are, again, the ones actually doing the work, to be the ones representing the field. And yeah, that would be my approach.
Yeah, it's all about being an ally and making sure that everyone gets the credit they're due, right? By lifting them up and saying, if I have a female geospatial analyst and said, this is what she's done, she's amazing, she should be promoted. And then I try to take a step further, and I like my employees and the people I work with to go out and speak and be part of the geospatial community, so people can see themselves on stage, right? Because unless you can see yourself on stage, you'll never see yourself advancing to that point. And having role models and allies is really important for this. It's really all about the community being an ally to everybody and pushing that up. Trans, LGBTQ, people of color, and women, so we can see a diverse set that is you.
And I would also say, as it comes to the diversity, the components, is we need to promote the global South more. I think we're very much the global North perspective, especially when it comes to manels, and people in the global South have been underrepresented forever, and we need to really promote folks, not just in our whitewashed communities, but people of color and people from the global South, and give them voices as well.
I think this is perfectly in line with a very popular question on Slido, Liz. So, and also a comment which I also comment on behalf of Women in Geospatial. So, what are the panelists and Women in Geospatial doing to improve other type of diversity in the sector? Our feminism needs to be intersectional, and this panel is all white. And just on behalf of Women in Geospatial, yes, thank you for the comment. And we didn't do good. And we also discussed it. We just see now our webinar series as a series of events, and there will be also webinars and speakers which are from the global South, and so we will strengthen or put a specific focus on gender and race diversity for the upcoming webinars. And so thanks for the comment, but maybe one or two panelists also would like to comment on this.
Can I suggest you actually make yourself a policy? And so you apply that policy each time you set up panels and stuff. It gives you a starting point to go and move from. that says, I would like, you might not make it every single time, but it would be a, what you want to see in your kind of makeup. And then you can just apply that every single time and hope that eventually it just becomes natural.
Yes, that's a very good suggestion.
The other thing,
good.
I guess,
sorry, yes.
I was going to say, the other thing I guess we also need to do is actually expand some of our networks. Our collaborators are probably white. I know there's certainly, when I look around departments and stuff, you just need to start getting to know a few more people other than your normal white colleagues that you sit with, I think.
So I just thought I would.
Yes, Marie.
So I just thought I would jump in there because I see lots of questions around non-white women, and I completely value the question. Definitely when we saw the recent global events going off, the board for the Women's Infrastructure Network UK started to look at the makeup of our own board and try and challenge whether or not we had board constituents which really represented our membership, and I was disappointed to see that actually we did not have a black woman on our board, which was something that we have got as an agenda item for discussion around how we find someone that can really support us going forward. We do have minority ethnic representation, which I think is great, but I think there's an activity for us to look at our membership and really make sure that we're reflecting the skills, the experience and background of people from the BAME community so that we can represent them going forward. One of the things that I have understood from the work that I've done around representation on panels is if you aren't representing women on panels, then you are actively excluding them from attending the events. So there's some work that I did with the Women's Infrastructure Network that suggests 1 in 4 women won't attend an event if there is an all-male panel. And although my study, or poll, let's say, didn't look at aspects such as race or age, I think it would be a very interesting thing to explore to understand whether or not we could see similar results when we look into that. And if that is the case, then there's an argument, I think, as Rachel, you suggested, for a policy that says earmark one panel seat, for example, for a panel of 4 to a BAME contributor, to make sure that we have visible all of the communities that we're talking to. That makes sense to me. There's mixed views on it within our membership, and so it's something that we are definitely looking to explore because we want to be inclusive.
Yes, this makes a lot of sense, and also I wanted to say it's like, yes, it's probably with many things, diversity doesn't happen by chance. You have to really, as Rachel said, you have to set yourself a policy, and you have to go the extra mile. So you have to put the effort in to say, okay, these are our values as an organization, and this is how we want to be represented. And yes, and yeah, but of course, it's like, as we today we can be better, and we, from our side, from Women in Geospatial, we will be better, promise. So unfortunately the time is already up. So if there is, so I would give the opportunity to the panelists to give one final statement or comment if you would like to. You don't have to, but if you would like to, before we then close the panel session.
I might just say that when we talked about trying to disrupt the panels, another way you can actually do this is talk to some of the sponsors. So they pay for these, and a lot of those companies actually have diversity policies in themselves. So we have J&J work. They have a room downstairs in our building, and I know they have a very good diversity panel. So I've spoken to them a few times about things I've seen, and they've looked into it because they're two women down there, but they're pushing, this is what our company's doing, so we shouldn't really be sponsoring this. We should be asking why is everybody male and white on a panel or at a meeting. So there are other ways to tackle if you don't want to talk to an organizer.
Great, thanks, Rachel.
And then I think my kind of final comment that I would add is thank you for having me on the panel and for joining the event. I would just really reiterate the speak up and speak out. So I'll second Liz and say I have a 1-year-old, and the recent event that led me to kind of writing an article and presenting about this at my work and these sorts of things was absolutely exhausting, emotionally exhausting. I was working evenings, weekends, collating lists of names of women and talking to women who could support the event so that they didn't have an option to not do that. And I think that we have to recognize this is the challenge that we have, and only by working together and raising awareness and hoping that we can get to the tipping point of, you know, organizations knowing that they can't put those events on without severely upsetting their attendees or not getting any attendance. So just to recognize it is a burden. Women are overburdened. I think please raise awareness, have these conversations with people in your family, at your work, remotely and socially distanced, so that we can work together and tip the scales. So thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect. It was great to have you on the panel, Marie. Yes, Todd, sorry.
That's okay. Again, thanks for having me on. But kind of working with what Marie said, it's really about, there's a lot of self-advocation that has to happen. And as someone who's entered his or their third phase of the career, it's my job to make sure people's first phase is to make a path for them. I seek out people of color, women, and transgender people to mentor and to bring into geospatial. As a non-binary person myself, I never had that role model, right? I sat in hundreds of meetings and just all sorts of stuff, and it was difficult until I started talking to people and started outing myself to a limited amount of people, and finally coming out last year. You have to be able to see yourself, and you have to self-advocate, and you have to push for mentors who are like you, or not necessarily like you, but are an ally to your particular situation. And we're never going to become a fully diverse community until we all really advocate for ourselves and have people advocate for it. I might be talking in a circle right there, but as a trans person, I've seen what it's like when people interact with me now, opposed to before. When they saw me as some, you know, generic cishet white male, now things are different, and I'm much happier where I am. And everyone can push that. If everyone can experience that and see that, well, this will be a much better community as far as with people of color and women.
Yes, thanks, Todd.
So I guess I'll say my final piece as well. Thanks again for having me. I really appreciate it and giving us the platform to talk about this. One thing I think we all have to recognize a little bit is to give all of us a little grace as we learn, and that we're all fallible. So I appreciate, you know, us thinking about the fact that there was no diversity in this panel. And I think knowing that we're all growing, so I myself am far, far from perfect, and recognizing that we will do wrong and we will do harm, and fixing that harm as best as we can with the power that we have. So I would say to follow 500 Women Scientists if you don't already on Twitter. I think we as an organization are trying really hard to fight the patriarchy and to fight a lot of these issues across fields. So, and wherever you are, come as you are and come to learn. We're all learning together. And diversity and voice matters, and it's really, really important for our global world.
Yes, I really like 500 women scientists. So it would I also looking forward to collaborate more in the future. And thanks for accepting being on the panel. Rachel,
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Yeah, have a good day.
No, yes. Sorry. Before we go off, I would just yes, thank again everyone. I just open up the final slides. Yes, thank you again, Todd, Marie, Rachel, and Liz, for having the discussion, for taking the time. You also mentioned that, of course, it's a lot going on at these moments, and so it's really, we really appreciate it that you took the time to be with us today and discuss it. Just for the audience here, we will write up the discussion points and we'll post it also as part of a blog article, because we really want to, the advice we got today from all four, we would like to also convey it, and we want to build up on it to really hopefully in the future to see less manuals. So as I said, I also want to say thank you to Ida for actually making the database happening, and also the idea for today's webinar. So thank you, Ida. And also thank you, Geovation, for hosting this webinar. It's a great pleasure to collaborate on this webinar and also on the upcoming webinar we have next week. And this is what I just want to promote for next week. So if you have time at the same day and time, so next Wednesday, 8th of July at 4 p.m. Central European Summer Time. This is the start of the career development webinar series, and the webinar is about how to gain professional confidence, because I think it was also said quite often today, it's about, yes, how people recognize you as an expert. So you also have to put yourself out, and this webinar is about, okay, how can you actually improve your ways, how can you speak up, and how also have others done it, and what struggles and challenges they had. So if you're interested in, please register under bit.ly/wic_panel_2, and hopefully to hear and see you next week again. Just before we conclude, I think as a good conclusion is, yes, let's make a change together on different levels. As from Women in Geospatial perspective, so you can join us, go to our website, and there you see how you can register. Also on social media, so please help us to advocate and also to speak up that we need a change, and we also need more diverse perspectives, more diverse panelists, more diverse conferences. So also please help us on social media. And with the speakers database, you can now also put yourself out there and being seen from conference organizers. There was just one last question in the chat I saw. If the database can be searched from the outside, so without being registered. And yes, so if you're a conference organizer, or you're a podcast organizer or event organizer, and you want to have your geospatial event more diverse, yes, you can browse the database with the profiles without being registered. And in this way, thank you all for joining today. And yes, I wish you a nice remaining day, night, because I realized that, yes, it was really a global audience. And hopefully, please reconnect next week again, and hopefully see and hear you next week. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.